Welcome. Rainier Avenue Radio World. Partnership in county parks. We have been celebrating a week of environmental justice, cultural expression, and storytelling. And it's not over. Yeah, it ain't over. From a powerful Earth Day Duwamish River Tour and Alicia Mulligan's moving indigenous Chicana dance performance to deep conversations on food sovereignty and transportation justice, this week has been transformative. I do want to remind you that we have on Friday coming up, we got another day after today. We still have a lot more to do today, but on Friday we have our panel with the mayors of Seattle and Bremerton and the Seattle City Council President. That would be Bruce Harrell, Mayor of Seattle, Greg Wheeler, Mayor of Bremerton, and Sarah Nelson, Seattle City Council President. We'll be talking about environmental justice in action, and you know you can't take the politics out of environmental justice. So we're going to find out more from our elected officials. This will be your last chance to see the Art of Soul Gallery, and you can meet the artists. They'll be here on Friday for our closing ceremony from 5:30 to 7:30. And it's all free. You know, in addition to that, all of our panelists are being asked to come back, and we'll have performances from just a multicultural celebration from the Marshallese community and the Vietnamese community and the Filipino community performing dance and song here. And we've got a couple other surprises for you as well. We're just going to keep the momentum going. Celebrate, learn, act, because our earth deserves more than a day. I am really interested in hearing this discussion that's coming up. Now, if I tell you what it is and it doesn't make sense to you, that's okay. That's what they're here for. So, Circular Economy Business Park. You may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with climate justice, environmental justice? You are about to find out. I am now going to turn it over to Quest Jollife, Project Manager for King County Solid Waste Division.
Thanks, Tony. And we'll just start off by clarifying, we'll go a little bit deeper than just the Circular Economy Business Park. We're going to talk about a bunch of the programs and projects that we have in King County Green Tools, in our Green Tools teams. And this is a good time to introduce the rest of the team that I work with, including.
Thanks, Quest. My name is Brody Abbott. I'm a project manager with King County's Solid Waste Division.
Yep, I'm Kinley Deller, and I'm a circular economy catalyst, I guess you'd say, for the circular economy.
A catalyst for sure. Kinley, that's a great opportunity for us to start with you, kind of kick us off and let us start to share with everybody some of the important, our bigger projects. We work on lots of different projects at different levels, from little teeny projects to super huge multi-million-dollar projects. And we work with a team throughout King County that's 14,000 strong. So we provide services to 39 cities throughout King County. And our focus is on a bunch of circular economy projects. What are some of those that we're going to talk about today?
Well, there's a number of them. Let me break things down just a little bit.
Let's switch mics.
Yeah, my thing's quiet.
See if that one will stretch.
Is this one working? Oh yeah, that's better. Okay. So all of us are part of the Construction and Demolition Materials Diversion Team, or C&D team at the county, focused on trying to figure out what to do with construction and demolition materials, get them used to the highest and best use. And we're part of a larger team at the county called the Green Tools team, focused on green building. Closer? Okay. So the Green Tools team is focused on sustainability, both for county-owned projects And we provide a lot of assistance to anyone and everyone else out in King County. We don't do much work in the city of Seattle. We have counterparts in the city of Seattle, but anywhere else in King County, we're there to help when it comes to green building. So again, this team, and then we have a fourth team member we should mention too, Canyon Little, works with us on the C&D stuff. And like I said, we're trying to figure out how to get all these construction demolition materials used in a better way right now, right? If a building is, if it's going to be removed, right now, traditionally, the building's just demolished, right? Somebody comes in with a wrecking ball or a big track hoe, knocks the whole building down. It most likely would get sent to a landfill. There's also the possibility that it might go to a recycling facility where they try to pull out anything that might have value, but at that point, it's crushed into little pieces. So we're kind of looking at each of the different materials that are being generated through either construction or through demolition and trying to figure out new homes for those materials. In some cases, there's markets for those materials that have existed for thousands of years. And in some cases, there's new markets for materials. And we're trying to look at all of that. A lot of what we're focused on right now, what kind of seemed to us a couple of years ago as the easiest commodity to work on was wood. And so that's probably going to be a large part of what we talk about today, is explaining the different pieces of the circular economy for salvage lumber that we've been working on. It's a circle, right? So it's hard to know where to start. Should we jump in with our training program, talk about deconstruction?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do a quick intro, right? I talked about demolition and just knocking down buildings. There's this concept, right, that you can systematically take a building apart. We usually call that deconstruction, and it's a way of harvesting all those materials and keeping them intact as much as possible so they can be reused. And when we're talking about wood and all the other materials that are in the building, we figured out that we need to have more companies doing deconstruction. There's a few in the area now. And there's more policies that are coming on board. We can talk about policy later if we want, but we have a training that we've been, we're a couple of years into it now, focused on deconstruction and working with some key groups, some key partners. And I'll let you guys talk about that.
That's good.
Air switch.
Yeah, switch. Thanks, Kinley. So I got to King County Solid Waste Division a couple of years ago. And so I can't say that I started this workforce development program, but I did have experience in the past working on workforce development programs, particularly green workforce programs, and saw an opportunity from what's currently been developed, which is a deconstruction focused training, to really sort of elevate both the training side and the sort of soft skills, educational side of things by incorporating maybe a broader range of sort of environmental programming that's both focuses on deconstruction, but also covers, the system in its entirety. And so to that, there's a curriculum called Roots to Success. It was developed by Dr. Van Jones and a few other academics in San Francisco during the sort of Green New Deal movement that was happening. And the idea was really thinking about how green jobs are, one, the way of the future. Secondly, we have all these environmental threats, in everything from water to, waste and all these other different sort of sectors, so to speak. And there's a workforce and there's people who have disproportionately been impacted by the negative issues of climate change and I would say being underemployed, having barriers to employment. And so what this curriculum is really seeking to do is be culturally responsive to people who have had idle employment, people who have criminal histories, people who just haven't been able to tap into the green economy and get trained to get certified and learn I would say a wide spectrum of environmental sectors, particularly green sector, green building, and then get a pre-apprenticeship certification, which I think is really important because a lot of folks find it hard to get into the trades because they don't have those prerequisites to get into the trades. And so I think one thing that's special about the program that we're building is being able to couple our sort of deconstruction training with a broader set of environmental services that very much are related to deconstruction, but also gives folks more of an opportunity to build their workforce.
I like it. So let's widen the lens and talk a little bit about how the programs that we're starting to touch on are related to our overall waste stream. Basically, our waste stream in King County it's split into two arms. We have 1.1 million tons of C&D, construction and demolition debris waste. We have 1.2 million tons of MSW, which is municipal solid waste. That's a total of 2.3 million tons of waste. It's a stratospheric number. And if we took people out to the landfills and they saw how much stuff we throw away, they would demand that we change the way we're doing business. And that's some of the things that we work on, which is to figure out how to divert things out of the waste stream. And what's important to understand about what we're doing is if we're changing our waste stream from a linear waste stream where we go out, we harvest materials, whether it's drilling into the ground or cutting down trees, we bring those things to a processing facility, we turn them into usable materials, and then we bring them to another facility and we manufacture them into an end-use product, anything from a 2-second cup to a 60 or 70-year house, or TVs and radios and cars and everything in between. And our previous business model throughout the world, not just America, has generally been for the last probably 100 years, since the 20s Industrial Revolution, has been we go out, we harvest everything, we manufacture it into products, and then when we get done with it, we smash it, turn it into toothpicks and shards, and send it to a hole in the ground, and then we go back out and start over again. What we figured out is not only is that not sustainable, but it's not necessary, and it's not wise or logical. We have the ability to divert stuff out of our waste stream and then reuse it, not just recycle, which is great, but it's not the best and highest use of our materials. We can reuse it. And how that relates to what we're working on is we're working on different ways to change that process. One of them is workforce development, where we're training people to go out and harvest all the material out of a house through deconstruction. We're also training those same individuals to give them multiple options, not just how to do deconstruction, but how to work in this new economic environment, which is environmental services. And to have more people join the army of change. Speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely, Quest. Just piggybacking off that a little bit, I think it's part of what we're really trying to do in terms of, thinking about it in a different way, thinking about how we look at commodities in a different way. What's a commodity is really elevating consciousness. You said a lot about, how we can really look at a material, how we can look at, how things have sort of transpired in our history from the industrial side of how we used to create things to this sort of circular economy in which we're trying to really elevate and move forward. And a big part of that is really, I want to say education, because I think a lot of the information is out there. I think that's part of it, but it's also just, the willingness and the consciousness to think about things in a different way. I think one thing that history tells us is that it's really hard to pivot and change from things that are so deep rooted, both in our government and how we do business in both local government, federal government, really any type of business. And so I think one of our end goals is to really think about how we talk about these things in a way that's both digestible and culturally relevant to the communities that are honestly being impacted at a disproportionate level, and the ones who oftentimes make the decisions on behalf of folks that they don't have a great relationship with, aren't adjacent to, and just don't have the insight. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I just want to add that one of the things that circular economy thinking, I guess, brings to the table is the people, right? Like the way the current industry has been for years, the way that Quest described it, being so linear, right? It makes it so that everything can be done on a large scale, can be done in bulk. Companies go through and they clear cut the forest, and then it all gets sent to a really large factory, and then everything gets distributed. But when you're talking about circular economies, it's a lot easier to do it on a smaller scale, a more local scale. And it moves away from the really heavy machinery into more human scale machinery. And that brings value to communities.
I would agree. And so speaking to that, when we're focusing on all the way down to training individuals and giving them opportunities, new skills to change the way we're doing business, all the way up to some of our bigger projects and programs where we're working at a level to develop things like the circular economy for salvaged lumber. That's a project. I think one of the things we'd like to make sure we're doing today is to share with our community how are we serving them as public servants? What projects are we working on? What programs are we working on? And a couple of the programs, we've already spoken to the workforce development side of it. We'll touch on that some more and expand so that maybe people want to be involved in that, whether it's get access to that training that we're providing in these coming months, or maybe they want to help provide the training, or who knows, maybe they want to learn about it and start a business in this same realm. Also, we want to speak today to the circular economy for salvaged lumber, which is sort of in conjunction with the city of Seattle's project that they have going on, the Salvage Lumber Warehouse. Super cool project that they have pretty decent level of funding for, where they're gonna set up they have an organization who is going to run a facility where they receive salvage lumber, divert lumber out of the waste stream, and they're going to process that lumber. And then we're going to, instead of turning it to toothpicks and sending it to either a landfill or potentially hog fuel, which is at least a recycle aspect of that, we're going to reuse it whole. And they're going to reuse it whole. And they're going to send it out the other side and find organizations who can build tiny houses, who can build sheds, who can build furniture, who can build lumber packages. I'm sure many folks have wondered what happens with all that lumber that goes to the landfill. Why is it going to the landfill when they see it coming through? And I think anybody who's ever seen a transfer station or a landfill has wondered, why are we doing things the way we're doing them? And this is us informing our public and our community of the fact that we're working on changing that.
Yeah, absolutely, Quest. Just to kind of elevate your points a little bit higher. I think we all believe that part of our responsibility working for King County and working for local government is to really serve the public. And part of that is both, sharing information in the channels that we are like this, but also, coming into those communities and also us creating spaces and avenues for, folks to come and see the work that we're doing, come to those transfer stations, come to those wastewater treatment plants. These are free because obviously they're public, but more than anything, they're in your backyard. And I know sometimes it could be intimidating to just drive by something so big and so large and not know all the ins and outs of it. And you may not even, really think about how much investment, time, how many employees work there, all these different levels of like this entity that is creating so many different opportunities, both for people and the planet, right? And the economy. And so thinking about that triple bottom line, I think more than anything for us, we really want to elevate all the work that we're doing in a way that's accessible as well. So I just wanted to share that.
I'm wondering, Quest, if you could go back just a minute and explain one of the terms you used. You said hog fuel. What the heck is that?
Yeah, so great question, Kinley. Hog fuel is this material that we use is used in energy production facilities generally. It can be used in various forms, but basically the majority of scrap lumber that doesn't go into a landfill can be harvested through a MRF, a material recovery facility. Thank you, Kinley. And there's several of them around our region. And it's a great way for our mixed debris to go through a line and pull off these usable commodities. The problem with it only being through a MRF is that it's usually harvested at a very low level of not reusability, but recyclability. And that brings us all the way down to hog fuel, which it's good that we're finding a use for it rather than landfilling it when we can. But hog fuel goes to these energy production facilities to be burned and generate, usually in steam turbines, generate power for various commercial level facilities.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's talk about back to workforce development, Brody. What parts of our workforce development program are you especially focused on advancing for us and taking to a new level? I would ask specifically about Roots of Success and how that is giving all the individuals who participate a different level of certification and a different level of education, and then a different level of ability to transition into the green workforce.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So some of my efforts, as Quest has mentioned, is workforce development. And part of why I feel like the Roots of Success curriculum is so special is because there's so many different, not so many, but there's 4 different versions of them. There's a version that is tailored towards folks that are incarcerated, and they can take the Roots of Success training while they're incarcerated. And, you know, if you know anything about either folks that have been incarcerated or reentry, so much of that process in terms of them being able to get out and hit the ground running starts to happen before they get out. And so being able to have something like Roots of Success is really important. Secondly, Roots of Success is really tailored towards folks who have, you know, experiences that are non-traditional to folks who go to college, right? Meaning you don't have to have the quote unquote highest literacy levels. You don't have to understand every single thing about deconstruction, green building, urban forestry, all these sort of technical things about the environment. All you really need to have is some energy and some effort, and, you know, the ability to learn. Because what's really great about it is that it really does meet you where you're at. The curriculum is structured in a way to where it's not just traditional Western education. It's very much collaborative. You work in teams a lot. You're able to really get through the work in a way where you're not feeling like it's like an actual test, but more you're actually learning about real skills, things that happen in your day to day. And what I'm excited about this is because there's so many opportunities to expand who we've been working with. The last couple of cohorts, we've been working with organizations here in Seattle, Freedom Projects and Community Passageways, and their mission and a lot of their alignment is around supporting folks who have barriers to employment. You know, they offer career coaching, they offer, you know, I'm pretty sure gang prevention, like all these different types of programs and services. And as a team, I think we've all sort of agreed that, you know, from an equity standpoint, we really need to start to think about our resources being tailored towards those who don't have many or don't have much, and who do have barriers and consistent barriers. And so for the last 2 cohorts, we have been working with folks who have barriers to employment. However, although those folks very much benefit from our services and our program, we know that others do as well. And so we're really wanting to expand who we're working with in terms of, you know, age, interests, cultural identity, things of that nature, because this curriculum is very much not just a one size fits all. It really tries to cover a lot of different concepts, like tribal ecological knowledge, to thinking about sustainability in terms of, you know, using something from a grocery store and reusing it, right? And it really does break it down in those terms. And so for me, what I'm really excited about with this curriculum is expanding it to broader King County, you know, thinking about the youth, folks that are 18 to 25, that's a transitioning point, and just really being intentional about who we work with and passing dollars into the communities that haven't been served.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that a little bit, and that's just that I've seen a great benefit in the Roots of Success training in terms of general environmental literacy training or environmental literacy education, I guess. And that, over the years that I've been working at King County, we've tried many different times working with different groups, and we've been, I guess, really interested in and dedicated to learning more about different populations within King County and what their values are and how we could be working with them and changing the way the system works for the benefit of their communities. But we haven't always known how to ask the right questions, and we haven't known it. I guess we've always had a little trouble understanding everything, I guess. I don't know the best way to put it, but we go to communities and we say, tell us about, what you think would be better with recycling. And I feel like years ago, we used to just show up and ask the question, and then some people would provide their input. But there wasn't really a whole lot of context, maybe. And with the Roots of Success training, what it really does is offer context. It provides populations that, haven't grown up or spent 20 years thinking about solid waste. It gives them, or other commodity or things, right? Roots of Success, it talks about, you should probably give an overview of the chapters. It talks about a lot of different things. Solid waste is only one of them. But it provides a really good general background and provides the language and the context for a lot of different populations to come together and communicate. And it's been helpful for me in thinking about the different pieces and how they all fit together. I don't know.
That's great. I can definitely give some context to the Roots of Success because we've been kind of alluding to it, and I just want to maybe give like a 30-second highlight of it, and then I'll end by saying another reason why the program is so I would say timely and important in terms of the things that we're trying to get done. But for the former, Roots of Success is a pre-apprenticeship environmental literacy curriculum that is really aimed to work with communities that are quote unquote non-traditional, educated, and provides context to 6 environmental sectors, 6 or 7, and then there's another portion of it that's very focused on professional development, workforce readiness, and figuring out how to navigate getting a job. And so, in terms of how the curriculum is set up, they're phased out in modules. And so, as an example, the first module would be, the fundamentals of environmental literacy. So it'll give you a whole sort of context and overview of environmental literacy as it pertains to water, as it pertains to the built environment. When we think about recycling, when we think about all these different concepts of sustainability, this module breaks it down in such a way where you're able to not only read the content, you can contextualize it because there's a lot of open-ended questions when you go through the curriculum that really makes you think about, like, what do I do in my day-to-day? For example, it talks about our water consumption and how much water a household uses on a day-to-day basis. And I asked the question to the cohort in the class about how much water do you use? And we give them the equation to break down how much water they use based off of all the different, I guess, elements of this equation. And it's really interesting to see how much people can start to contextualize how much water is used in the world based off of how much water they use. And so that's just one example of how the curriculum is broken down and how it's really important, because it's not just giving these high level concepts of things that happen in that, maybe the general public may not even really like sort of engage with on a day-to-day basis, like, on a day-to-day, even though it does affect them. However, being able to break things down from a personal level is really special. And I think that's one way to really educate folks. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of just the readiness of this program is really sort of centered around, equity and how, the economy has really done a disservice for folks that have been underemployed and who have, racial disparities in employment. Part of that is through wages, right? And what we want to do, and what hasn't been done much, is paying folks to get trained, to get a certification, to get to the next best thing. a lot of training programs are not going to pay you a comparable living wage or prevailing wage to go through a program in which they get a certification, because we're so capitalistic, right? But in terms of the circular economy and the concept of the circular economy, one thing that I'd like to know, and I think it's somewhat privy to the circular economy concept, is really thinking about how we keep our dollars in our ecosystem. And that could be commodities, but it's also wages. That's also employees. That's also businesses that, you know, we would want to keep in the circular economy as well.
Brody, you touched, and Kinley both touched on something involving the term environmental literacy, educating people. I would say to the public, how many people have wondered, why are we doing things the way we're doing them? How can we change them? How can I participate? And just so you know, your tax dollars or the fees that we collect or whatever the funding system and process is, you're participating in that just by being a citizen. And you can participate further by hearing about these things and passing along information about the programs that we have going on. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's in a school, maybe it's somebody in your family or your circle that might need workforce development training. Maybe they can get educated about how things are changing in our system. And then another thing I wanted to circle back to that Brody touched on, which is the groups that we work with, not just the CBOs, the community-based organizations, but our sister jurisdictions, whether it's City of Seattle or the other 38 cities in King County, or the multitude of organizations that we work with, and that are all collaborating and brainstorming and coming up with better ways to do things. I think everybody, no matter what your how you define yourself, I think everybody can recognize that we are advancing in technology, in engineering. We're advancing at a blinding pace to the level that we have things available to us now to do things completely different. And so that will bring us all the way out to the big picture of the title of this segment, which is Circular Economy Business Park. This is kind of the hope and dream someday of having a totally different way of our stream, our commodity stream, how we obtain items, materials, products, and what happens with everything from the item, material, and product at its end of life to the packaging that it arrives in. Think about 200, 300, 500 years ago, we didn't have this much waste. We didn't have waste streams. We didn't have waste divisions. We created things and we used them until they disappeared, pretty much. And then we reused them as much as we could in various forms. And that's what we have the ability to do nowadays, is figure out and reimagine a new system, a new way of doing business, which maybe Kinley, you can speak to some aspect of that, and how the Circular Economy Business Park, the Circular Economy for Salvage Lumber, which is kind of the beginning of that, the Salvage Lumber Warehouse, which is the beginning of that. How do those relate to everything that we're working on and the change in our waste stream? And I'd like to start referring to it as a commodity stream, rather than a waste stream.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, I'll do what I can to pull together everything. So I want to go back to the Salvage Lumber Warehouse, right? That is the Salvage Lumber Warehouse is one piece in the circular economy for salvage lumber, right? When you look at salvage lumber, there's lots of other pieces that all need to be supported in order to get the circular economy moving in a circle, right? When you're spinning plates, you can't just put it on your finger and spin it once and it'll fall. So it takes a lot of work to get all the pieces around the plate moving at the same time. So some of the different pieces, right? So there's the Salvage Lumber Warehouse going to be taking in material, salvage lumber, processing it, putting it back out as a nice board, without nails, without screws, ready to be used in something. So it could go as lumber into a new building. It could be made into an engineered wood product that would then go into a new building. It could go into furniture. lots of different directions it could go, but we're going to need people making things out of the lumber that's coming out of the salvage lumber warehouse. We're going to need people who are familiar with and good at putting that material into new construction, right? Whatever form it's in. Some of it's going to be identical to what it's replacing in terms of virgin lumber, but some of it might take a little bit more finessing or a little bit more education. And then once it's in that building, hopefully it'll be there for 60, 100, 200 years. And then it'll be time for it to come out again. And if we have architects and designers on board, then they can be designing those buildings so that when those buildings are taken down, that those materials can be disassembled in an easier way, right? Whether they're bolted together or what other fastening system is used.
And what is that concept called, Kinley?
Design for disassembly is what we usually call that. Thank you. So that will help with the cycle. And then we need the deconstruction people taking the buildings apart again. And then they'll be taking the material to the salvage lumber warehouse. And that's kind of the circle. And as part of that, there's lots of other smaller business opportunities, I guess you could say, for that. And that could happen. We're kind of developing it at a regional level, but we've also talked about it at a community level, right? One group within a community could be harvesting materials from structures in their own community that need to come down, and then using those materials directly for repair or upgrades to homes of members in the community. So salvage lumber warehouse, circular economy business park. That's one circular economy. Within construction demolition, there's lots of different materials that we focus on. Metals is another one, right? There's some metal products like gutters is one example. Rebar not so much because usually it's pretty mangled once you get it separated from the concrete. But like gutters, there's a number of other things that I've looked at, but none of them are coming to mind at the moment. Structural steel, yeah, like there's a lot of industrial buildings now that have the steel studs, and I was looking at those recently, and a lot of them are just screwed into place. They can be pretty easily unscrewed and reused. So there's direct reuse applications like that, right? But even with the example of gutters, right, it's going to take somebody who knows how to remove the material so that it can be reused, right? If you use an excavator and you just grab a hold of it and pull it off the building, there's no chance of reusing that. If you get somebody who knows how to deconstruct a building, take it off, it can go somewhere to get reused. But it's going to have to be inventoried probably. It's going to have to be warehoused potentially. And then it's going to have to make its way back out to people who know how to install it. There might be a few small things that have to be done differently for installing a used gutter, right? Either they have to reuse the ferrules that were there, or they may have to plug the holes and use a different attachment system depending on the structure. Anyhow, that's getting into the weeds. But that's another example of a circular economy thing, trying to get those gutters reused, right? There's lots and lots of examples of things like that. And the idea with the circular economy business park is having one location, or it could be a network of locations, but that would take these materials after they're harvested from the building as a resource. They would be able to go to the circular economy business park, get the minimal processing that they need, be inventoried, and then also have that network in place to get that material back out again to be reused. And there's, one concern with stockpiling things is it'll turn into a hoarding situation, right? And you end up with way more stuff piled up. That's partly why you need that whole circular economy, and you have to get it going all at once, is so that you have that demand, you know where it's going to go. And you can also put systems in place where you say, this is how much we're going to collect. Once we reach that point, it's going to have to go to recycling, just like it was before. But if it reaches that point, it's already separated out. It's not like it has to go, it's not like it's getting mangled and then going to a processing facility and then getting pulled out and it's dirty. You've got a good, clean product, and you can get more value for it as a recycling commodity if it has to go that direction. So there's a lot of different materials and a lot of different ways materials can be reused. And when they can't be reused, then they can get recycled if they're cleaner and they've been harvested with that intention in mind. Another quick example, is concrete, right? Somebody had a concrete slab that was poured in their backyard as their patio. They used it for 80 years, whatever. Tired of it. They're ready to put in some vegetation. That comes out. If it's small enough pieces, it becomes urbanite. So basically it's roughly 2-foot size pieces. You can stack that up, make walls, make garden walls, feature walls. And if you're not able to do that, it can go to a recycling yard, concrete recycling yard, where it gets crushed and then it gets used as a road base or other fill material. Sometimes concrete can actually get crushed to a finer amount and get used for making new concrete. So, but if it just gets mixed up with all the dirt, all the soil, roofing material, whatever else is happening on that site, it makes it a lot harder to get it separated. So that's another key thing, I guess, is the more that things are mixed together, the more energy and work it takes to separate them. And at some point, it's not worth it anymore. So when we can collect materials separated, it goes a lot further in terms of creating a better economy for everybody, really.
Great stuff right there, Kinley. You touched on a couple of things that bring us all the way out for people who are listening. Some ideas for them to keep in mind is that as change happens and you want to understand things better, you're able to reach out to our teams, to various organizations, and try to figure out how do you participate in new ways of doing things. Remember a couple of cool concepts right now that are going on. And this is, again, regardless of how you define yourself, economics is economics. And we know that our economy is changing. There's some things occurring with our economy that are going to get a little bit more expensive, whether it's inflation, tariffs, various things are infecting or affecting our economy. And a great concept is that tariffs don't affect reuse. When you go out and you do secondhand or keep use, keep your clothes, keep using your clothes. You don't need new clothes. At least I don't. And so keep use is a great new concept where you can keep using stuff that you have. Use your car a little longer. You don't need a new car. Use your shed that you tear down to make something else. So that's the type of change that we're talking about. We're at the macro level where we're trying to affect change on a much larger scale. And we're trying to influence it from all different points of impact. But everybody out there who's listening can have an effect on their own commodity stream, on their own circle and cycle, environmental system. So keep in mind some of those things that if you want to know how you can help, just use your common sense a little bit more to go a little bit further and realize that we don't all have to be quite as consumptive. We don't have to consume as much. We can continue using things to a deeper end of life. Speaking of end of life, so there's a couple of things that we're also working on involving LCAs, life cycle analysis, just so we understand what do these things look like, the full life cycles of products. We're working on EPRs.
What's EPR? Extended producer responsibility.
Thank you, Kinley. Extended producer responsibility. We also are working on another part of our team is working on some things that could help homeowners with their projects. The handbook, the Green Tools Handbook.
What is it called? Green Building Handbook?
Green Building Handbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit so that homeowners can understand. Here's another aspect and another opportunity for you to participate in changing how we do things. If you're doing a project and you want to understand how do I do solar? How do I put in more efficient windows? How do I increase the efficiency of my home by insulating better? There is a Green Building Handbook that King County makes available to you. It also connects you to the organizations who provide those services. It also connects you to incentive programs throughout the state, county, and city that will provide incentives or supplemental returns, tax returns, and various programs that will help you offset the overall cost of your project. So use those to your advantage. That's what they're there for, is so that we can create more efficient structures. And when you're doing your project, you have the ability to know where to look and know where to start on how to do things better.
Yeah, it's a great guide. It's available online. Just look up King County Green Building Handbook and you should be able to find it. Another thing that I might mention is just to, if you're a homeowner and you're building a new home or you're remodeling, you might look at some of the green building checklists out there. One of the ones that we have locally is Built Green. They have a great checklist program, certification program, and their guides also kind of walk your contractor through the things that you can do to make your home sustainable. Where else do we want to go with this?
Maybe I can piggyback on what you said real quick.
Yeah.
Just in terms of some of the things that both Quest and Kinley said, I think just big picture with navigating bureaucracy and government, call us, reach out to King County, get people on the phone, email them. If you don't get another response, keep emailing, keep calling. I mean, that's where just big picture thinking about, just world things. The government has not played the role that it has needed to play in some ways in terms of being able to be accessible, meeting folks where they're at versus folks coming to us, and then just information that we put out to the world, like these handbooks and all these different guidelines and standards for things that, again, like could take a lot of energy if you just don't know it, like if you're just not intuitive about it, right? And so for me, like my biggest sort of advice for folks, having worked in local government for a while, is we're accessible, even if you think we're not. We're an email away, we're a call away, and if you don't hear from us, continue to reach out, because that's part of our job, is to walk you through that handbook or walk you through how to do some sort of like retrofitting or some remodeling for your house or whatever the case it is. Because if we don't have the answer, part of our job is to find the answer and find the resource. So I just want to say that we've said a lot of jargon things. We've talked about all these sort of technical concepts, and like sometimes you might be like, what does that got to do with me? Call us. We might be able to tell you and help you out.
Great point, Brody. And I will put a plug out there for an upcoming community engagement event at the Georgetown Steam Plant. There's a circular economy symposium where the community can come and learn more about different programs that are offered by not just King County, but all the various municipalities and other organizations. There's lots going on. And if you have questions about where do you get started, just like Brody said, reach out and figure out the pathway to somebody who can help you in the areas that you need help in.
I'm going to bring this back to the Sustainable Wood Business Park and the circular economy for salvage lumber, and just say that if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're somebody who works with wood, reach out to us. There's going to be some grants probably later at the end of this year, working on developing the collection system for lumber, right? When it's getting harvested, needs a way to get to the salvage lumber warehouse. We're going to be looking for individuals and startup companies to help with that. And then we're really going to be looking at markets for materials coming out of the salvage lumber warehouse, right? So if you're somebody who's been like taking pallets, taking them apart, building furniture out of them, and like giving them to your friends, and you thought about expanding your business, reach out to us. Let us know that you're there. If you're somebody who's, working on developing a process for making wood fiber insulation, think about making it out of salvaged lumber, come talk to us. There's a whole range of opportunities out there when it comes to working with salvaged lumber. So that's making a plug.
Awesome. Brody, you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to speak on behalf of King County and the work that we're doing. My last closing thoughts is, I'm a pretty big collaborative guy, and reach out to us. I'm not playing about that. We are a phone call or email away. We have a lot of efforts to be more accessible to the public, so stay tuned for that. But more than anything, just stay connected.
Kinley, closing thoughts?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just great to be here and great to talk to everybody who's tuning in, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. And hopefully we'll have some more great ideas to help share in the future too.
Cool. I'll close with a couple things. One is to the community. We're doing some super cool things on your behalf. If there's things that you see that we need to do different or whatever, please engage us. That's what we're here for. And then to Tony B, Rainier Avenue Radio, Earth Deserves More Than a Day. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to get the word out about our projects and programs. Thank you, everybody who's working here. Super cool program, and we appreciate you guys. And we appreciate our community who gives us an opportunity to work for them.